So welcome back to Los Angeles Data Platform. Okay, good day and night, everyone, whenever you are. By the way, so we have an idea of which markets we're serving in the community. Please drop city and country into the chat. Welcome again. Welcome to Los Angeles Data Platform User Group. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Steve, and I'll be the host and moderator of this virtual meeting. Today I'll be not joined by Yelena and Samantha, so today it's just me. Next slide is if you're attending us for the first time, here are the many ways to find and follow us. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, little bit of Instagram, very little of Pinterest. All the sessions are getting recorded and posted to YouTube and Rumble. And for the speakers that don't store their repository in PowerPoint, we also have our own GitHub for that purpose. So this way you can find all the artifacts, all the code, all the PowerPoint from the session. Please feel free to join our mailing list. We have weekly newsletters and also event notifications. We're reminding you on the next upcoming meeting. We're also reminding you when the video gets posted as well. And at the end of this meeting, we'll be raffling a custom T-shirt. You can scan the QR code now, or we'll come back to the same slide later at the end of the meeting as well. I'm hoping that since Yelena is not available, I'm going to be trying to raffle. This is going to be my first time trying to manage the raffle, so I'm hoping I'll succeed. And this meeting is sponsored by Data-Driven Technologies, which we call as a short as DDT. And it's essentially DDT is the organization that is financing Los Angeles Data Platform User Group monthly meetings, as well as once a year SQL Server in Los Angeles, which I mentioned before. It's going to be on August 13. It's going to be in Loyola Marymount University in Playa Vista. And it's a full day event, free to attend, although this time we're trying to predict better what the attendance is like. So we're charging for lunch. I think $15 is not a lot for lunch. And again, you can, the attendance is free. If you don't need the lunch, that's completely free. If you never attended SQL Server in Los Angeles, just type hashtag SQL SATLA and you would see us on Instagram. So you can basically enjoy visually what the events were like 2 or 3 years ago. Again, this one is going to be in person. And during the presentation, please feel free to drop questions in the chat. Alternatively, you can unmute yourself to ask questions. And without further ado, let's move to the rock star of today's online meeting. Tracy, please take it away and introduce yourself.
All right, good evening, everybody. Let's get my screen shared over here. Hopefully that works successfully. You see my PowerPoint, right?
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. All right, good evening. We're going to talk about SQL Server configuration with dbatools and dbachecks. I'm Tracy Boggiano. dbatools and dbachecks are two of my favorite tools. A little bit about me. Once I get my PowerPoint going, there we go. You can find me on Twitter with just my name, Tracy Boggiano. The easiest way to technically find me, because everybody usually has a hard time spelling Boggiano or remembering how to spell it anyways, is just go to databasesuperhero.com, except you might want to spell it better than I did on my bio slide. Evidently, I put an extra E in there. Good job, Tracy. But I got a whole bunch of fancy icons on here. The main one I like to talk about is the one right underneath my name is my North Carolina Guardian Ad Litem one, where I am a foster child's advocate in court. I've been doing that for 19 years, and I have proudly represented 63 foster children's best interests in court over the 19 years, and that's my passion outside of the database world. Everything else is just kind of fluff after that. So I do some other volunteer work outside the secret community, but I do a lot inside the secret community. But nothing beats helping a kid in need. So my email's pretty easy to get to as well. Tracy at tracyboggiano.com. Feel free to drop me a line. My DMs are open on Twitter, so you can get to me very easily and ask me questions after the session if you think of anything that you don't get to during the session. So we're gonna go over these two amazing tools that the community has put together that are free. Everybody can use. You don't have to pay anything for them. Just gotta know how to set them up and use them. So this is a very demo heavy session. I will be doing maybe 5 slides, maybe 6, somewhere around there. And then I will be doing mostly code after that and navigating a Power BI report to show you the results of the code. We will have some breaks in between different sections of the code to ask questions about different things that I have done and to allow it to run all the checks again to verify that I actually fixed things that the dbachecks had turned up. So the first thing we want to do is actually get this installed. So dbachecks is very easy to install. If you just do install module dbachecks, it won't work. Right now we're in the process of upgrading it to Pester 5, but Pester 5 and Pester 4 are not compatible. Pester 4 is a PowerShell module that is in charge of is a testing framework PowerShell module. So it's what does all the tests behind the scenes for the PowerShell, and it's just not backwards compatible. So if you by default let it do an install, it will download the wrong version and it just won't run, and then you'll get errors, and then you'll be Googling it, and you'll probably come across my presentation and try to fix it. So that's why I always sit this at the very beginning of the introductions and tell you, hey, do this first. Make sure you get it installed correctly before you do anything else. And then it will actually download dbatools as part of it. It doesn't matter what version of dbatools you get. You want the newest and greatest anyways. They're pretty much updating it every single day and releasing a new minor version of it because there's all kinds of awesome people in the world contributing to it. So a little bit more about what these tools are. dbatools is just an open source PowerShell module that was started by some awesome people in Europe. It contains a lot of PowerShell commands, about 500 commands or more at this point, that can manage your SQL servers. It works against Azure SQL DB, manage instances. You can see we're talking, I don't know about RDS, but I'm pretty sure it probably does stuff against RDS. You just got to run it remotely. But it can run against, hundreds of machines at the same time and just do everything all at the same time and figure everything the same way, run a query the same way, change all your, like I just changed the power plan. I just started a new job 2 weeks ago, so I just changed all the power plans on all of my virtual machines to high performance today. I changed all the page verifications for the databases that didn't have it to checksum. There was like 7 scattered throughout different places, but to be sure, I just ran it everywhere. Wrote run query, boom, ran it across all the instances just in case something got missed. But you can do that and run it across 30, 50 instances and know everything's configured the same way, and you don't have to worry about it. And they're trying to make this where you can do everything that you could do through SSMS. You can do it through them instead of having to use SSMS or a script, because PowerShell is a more automated way of doing things than opening up SSMS and running a script is. You have the CMS server that you can use inside of SSMS if you set one up that you can run queries against, but they have a command that will actually pull out your servers from your CMS server and let you run it against those groups that you set up in CMS and run it against all those servers that are registered in there. So, you can take advantage of it both ways depending on what you need to do at the moment in time. So it's very convenient and very easy to make things happen with these tools. One thing you can do to see what dbatools is once you download a module, you can do git command and tell it what module you want, dbatools, and just do format wide and just get a list of all the commands. It's going to be a lot. So I recommend just going dbatools.io.commands, and they've got the full list of commands out there. They've got them by category, so you can go by SQL agent and find everything that has to do with creating agent jobs or copying operators, things that are done by the database. They've got all kinds of groupings for them. Here's a small list of what the format wide gives you. As you can see, they've got a bunch of AG commands down here, things for backing up things, things for clearing out wait stats, things for copying DB agent stuff, a number of different things. Clearing the plan cache, I wrote that one. There's another one on here for all kind, attaching and detaching databases, for if you need to move databases around, just about anything you can think of that they do it. And if it's not something they do, they probably want to write it, and you can contribute to it if you want to out on GitHub. So then dbachecks comes into the scenes after dbatools. So they wrote all this stuff into dbatools, and then someone got the idea, hey, why don't we use PowerShell to see, hey, are our systems configured the way we want them to be configured consistently across the board? Hey, I can write PowerShell for that. And we have a nice open source PowerShell module made by the SQL community contributing to it that just checks your default configuration that you got set up on your servers and provides your output to PowerBI or to a table or to JSON. I know that my last job, we could use the JSON file and ingest it into a Custo environment and query it that way and put it with all our other telemetry data and do things with it. Or you can directly put it into PowerBI and look at it. We're going to do my new and improved method of putting it into a table today. It's going to be my first time doing that. I got it from Rob, but it's in my demo now. So, and all we're doing behind the scenes in dbachecks for 90% of it is using dbatools functions to retrieve the values that are being tested and seeing if they match what we think they should be, like checking to see if the power plans is high performance, seeing if query store is turned on, seeing if ad hoc optimized for ad hoc workloads is turned on, if your backup compression is turned on, you name it, they're checking the default for it. The good news too is if there's a configuration setting that they're not checking, is you can actually write your own custom checks and put it in there. That particular piece is not part of this presentation tonight, but it is an option. Stay tuned for that for maybe past Summit. If you go to Summit, I am doing a more expanded version of this presentation for that. So, and again, as I mentioned before, the framework for testing this is the PowerShell module for Pester that we did at the very beginning that would make sure we got loaded correctly before we started down this rabbit hole. Now, in comparison to dbatools, dbachecks has very few commands. That's it right there. That's all they got. Unless he's added one or two in the last month. So, we're going to use very few of these in this presentation just because we're keeping it pretty light for the introductory presentation and trying to make sure we get through some code. The main ones we're going to be using is the invoke dbc check. We're going to use a git check to look at things, and we're going to use a set command to actually set configurations of things, and that's pretty much it, all we're going to use. There is the ability to export configs. You can set up configs for your test environment's going to look this way, your production environment's going to look this way, or you can have groups of servers that look certain ways, and you can match those up maybe with your groups that you set up in your CMS servers, or however you're going to coordinate all this data in PowerShell, so that when you go and you run dbachecks against a set of servers, you send in that config, and it checks that group of servers to match this configuration, and then you're only testing what you want it to be set to based on that config. So all these things are there for the taking and very easy to do. So we will go through the basics of just, hey, we just installed a machine, we just got dbachecks, let's see what it can do, and take it from there. So get dbc check will turn up, hey, I can run all this stuff. This is the different checks it has, for example. So under agent, we can see we've got different checks for the SQL agent, like seeing if database mail's enabled, seeing if we have an operator, seeing if we have a fail-safe operator, seeing if there's a mail profile, seeing if there's, somebody besides someone who's left the company owns a job. May have ran into that recently. Seeing if we're keeping enough job history, seeing if a job has failed recently, things like that. And there's a long list of things that it runs. I can tell you from experience that if you run this against 60 servers and you run every single one of them, it'll take days to run. So you're going to have to run some sort of queuing mechanism because it only runs one server at a time. You're going to have to run some sort of queuing mechanism to get it to do bigger batches and go faster. And that is actually part of the rewrite that Rob's working on right now, is actually to make it go a little bit faster and not take so long to run. So to run it, it's very simple. You just do the invoke command with the name of your server, in my case a VM, what the actual computer name is, because there's computer level things that it checks as well. I put all checks in there. I did show summary so it doesn't spit out all the green and reds as it goes through and checks, because that just eats up the screen. In this particular example, I did a pass through to the PowerBI source, which basically outputs it to a JSON file, and then it started up with PowerBI, and then you would hit refresh and it would show you your data. And then back when I was demoing this before, this would be the report that we would get out that would show us, hey, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's broke. Today, we're actually going to be using a different Power BI report, though, because I've updated the presentation demos, but not the slide. Shame on me. I have to remember to do that. But now we're into demos. See what I mean by updating the demo slides? This is the Power BI report we're going to be using now. So far, all I've done is I've created a database with 5 tables in it. I'll give you the blog post for that from Rob Sewell for that. We've created a table that contains all our checks that it ran against the database into it. So every time you run it and the dbachecks has been updated, you're going to have to tell it, hey, suck out all the checks that it can actually run and stick it into a table so I know what you actually did. And then I set some config values for what my all hologram database backup's going to look like. So these are just the default names that happen to be, but if you wanted it to be something different, you can set up to something different. And then I inserted those into that database via that query. Then I ran the actual checks against the database and I sorted into a result set. And then I took that result set in 2 different sets and I took the top part of it and I put it into a summary table, a staging table, and let it fire off a trigger to stick it into a regular table. And then I took the detailed part of that result set and I stuck it into a details table. And based on that, I was able to refresh this Power BI report and get this data. And we're going to run this a couple of times just so we can see the data go down in size. So after I refreshed this data and got the report working against my data source, of course, there's directions on how to do this on Rob's blog post and his GitHub repo and all that stuff that will be linked at the end of the PowerPoint slide. So don't panic. There'll be ways to do this, and I can reblog about it if I need to and make sure everybody knows how to do it. So, because he's got directions on how to change the data source right here for you. And then the code to set everything up is right in his blog post. So no problems there. So after I did that, I came in here and I did a filter right here where if anything has failed greater than 0, I want to see it. So right now we're just looking at everything that has failed on the server. And so I happen to know from previous experience that most of my failures are from SQL agent stuff. There's 41 failures there. That's a lot of failures. You know why? Because we have no SQL agent alerts. We have no database operators. We have none of the SQL agent stuff that we would normally have. And that's like what, 1/4 of our failures. It's 25% of our failures right here out of all of our failures if we look at everything we got going on here. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to look at fixing, is going ahead and saying, hey, what can we do with dbatools and fix up all these SQL agent alerts and try to get this. We're going to try to get this 168 number down as low as we can during this presentation. We're not going to get it all the way down, but we're going to try to get as low as we can, and maybe we'll find stuff that I haven't seen before and fix that too. So I'm going to go ahead and run my variables. The new PowerShell session open here. There we go. Just what I want to see. So I'm going to set up some variables for database mail, because that's all for setting up SQL agent alerts. You want them to actually go to somebody. You don't want them set up with no operator and no mail to go to. So right now we're just going to say database mail. We're going to send a mail at mail.com. Some poor person there probably gets a lot of mail from my box, if that was a real address. So these are just variables that we're setting up to set what mail server, what operator name we're having, and what email it would actually go to. Then this is the actual command that we're going to use to do a config change. Make it a little bit bigger for you guys, just in case. But the set command is actually sets a config value where it will save it on the machine, where for now on this will be the value it always uses. You never have to set it again. And this is where you can use that export command and save it for different environments if you needed it to. So for other things. So we're going to set those config values for those variables. And if we wanted to see our config values, we can very easily view them. Why are you thinking? You shouldn't be thinking.
So you're basically using dbachecks to get the data and you're using dbatools to make changes.
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, dbachecks behind the scenes uses dbatools to do all the checking anyways with Pester. Does that make sense when I was explaining that?
Yep.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So we set those values, and if we wanted to look and see what values in general that we could set across the board, because there are several config values that we can set, and I want to make sure that you guys can see that there's more than one thing that we can set. We could take a look here and see that there's, several other things that we could actually set as well. You can set things around policies, what trace flags can be turned on, databases that can be skipped for like growth being disabled, a whole bunch of stuff I set up in here for security audit stuff, whether you need your trace flags turned on for Attendee. And there's just a slew of different things that you can actually go in here, and you can completely customize almost anything in here to a certain degree. And then you can export those configurations and save them for your particular set of servers, and import the config when you need it, and export it out and save it and run it against a certain set of servers. So we're going to take, in this instance, we're going to use a dbatools command, and we're going to get an instance of this particular server, because we're only operating with one server, and we're gonna fix some values. So one thing, we're going to turn on database mail, because database mail by default is turned off. So, hey, sit down, it's turned on. So if we don't have a database mail account, we're going to create one. Oh, now we have a database mail account. And now we create a server object. So now we actually need to, because there was no SMO at the time that I did this, we actually need to go in here and do this so that we can actually create the database mail and associate it with the SQL agent, because there's actually no dbatools command for this yet. Okay, so now we got that done. So now we need an operator. So we create some DBA operator. Now we have an operator that gets paged every day, all day long. And again, there was no, we're going to get us a set it up as a fail-safe operator. So again, get paid for everything. Then we're not going to set up fancy names for our SEBs 16s through 25s just because, you know, I'm being lazy and, you know, using PowerShell. But if you want fancy names, you know, you can customize these more. But we're going to set up alerts for everything SEB 16 through 25.
Tracy, maybe a little bit off topic.
Yeah, go for it.
But I was under assumption that fail-safe operator kicks in if you have a job with no notification failure. Is it true?
No, that
meaning basically rephrasing it, if a job doesn't have a notification to operator on a job failure, what would happen? It would just not notify, and fail-safe is not helping there, right?
Right. Yeah. There's. Yeah, if there's no operator set up, it would not notify anybody. But if there's a fail-safe operator, then it would notify this fail-safe operator if the fail-safe operator is on duty. So if the fail-safe operator has like 24-hour support, you know, 24-hour, and there is no notification person, then it would send it to the self-safe operator. You're correct.
Okay, so if a job doesn't have notification that goes to operator, so basically, if it fails, if it succeeds, if it's
oh yeah, it has to have somebody anything set up first, and then if there's no one else, if it doesn't have someone to send it to, it has to have a notification set up to begin with.
Got it.
And
so
then
if job
then
doesn't
it will
have
default to the fail-safe if that person is outside of hours.
Outside, got it. Okay.
That's my understanding of it. So by now, like, we've got all our agent jobs, all our agents set up. So we've got all this fun stuff set up. So we could rerun a report and see that we dwindle those down, but we're just going to proceed forward, and we'll run the report at the end and notify these things down. So now that we've got SQL agent down, I know from experience, from having done this a lot, not that one, that all the hologram stuff takes up a lot of alerts. See, look, he's on here a lot. He's right here, he's right here, he's right here, he's right here, he's right here. He's on here like 4 times, like 50 times. So basically, he's got his own category. Can I get that unhighlighted now? Can I unhighlight myself? But anyway, he's got 43 alerts. So we need to fix up his stuff first. So we get an alert for it because he's not installed. We get 4 alerts for every job, just about 3 on some of them. Some of it's because it's not like scheduled, because it's not installed, it doesn't exist. You know, it's just like, my goodness. So he needs to be set up next. Or if you don't use his solution, you can actually turn it off so it doesn't check. Because I have had people go, well, we don't use that. Okay, there's an option for that. But I use it, so I'm going to go through setting it up. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up with some variables. So we're going to, again, just define our host. I'm just going to throw in a wonky backup location, clean up after a week, give me an email operator for my jobs. We're going to install the solution. I always do replace existing because I just assume this stuff's not going to break anything because I did it in test first anyway, so it wouldn't matter when I do it to production. Install the jobs. Oops. Give it my cleanup backup time. And of course, if you got more custom parameters than just those, you're going to have to go in and edit the jobs because, like, we do mirrored backups to a secondary location at most of my places. So then I end up having to edit the job and go back in and do stuff. So now, and it's taking it and installing it straight off of GitHub. So you're getting the newest, latest released version. Slowly. Come on. You can do it. There we go. So now, after that's installed, the jobs are there, but they're not scheduled. So I've went through and I've set up a couple of different ways of scheduling jobs, so you have different ways of using the command to set up new jobs. I've got one where it's weekly at midnight, every day but one day a week at midnight, so you can have differentials. Saturday at midnight, do other things. Every 15 minutes, do a log backup. At 2 a.m., let's do our integrity checks. Do our index optimize at 10 p.m. Why not? And at midnight, do all them little cleanup jobs. So that'll get all our jobs actually scheduled, because it'll complain that the jobs aren't scheduled, which is a good thing, because I have ran into jobs where I go into places and they have all this stuff installed with no schedules.
And it doesn't work?
You wonder why it doesn't work. You still have no backups, but there's a backup job right there.
But nothing fails.
Oh. Let that run. Da, 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 da. You usually run faster than this little 8 GB machine. Come on. There you go. Spit out some stuff. There it goes, creating all my schedules. Come on, you want to do it. You think you want to do it, maybe. It's going slower than normal tonight. There it goes. Ah! Oh, it's still going. PowerShell. It gets there. I don't know why my computer's being slow. But is there any questions while it's being slow? I can't see question screens. I can't see chat.
So far, there are no questions.
Feel free to throw them out there about anything. You should have start taking so long. Well, next part, whenever we get to it, we're going to assign the email operator to every job that doesn't have one. Not only the jobs that we just did, but anything that happened to be on the system. Because again, this is a brand new system. So this will take care of that sys policy, blah, blah, blah thing that gets installed by default on the server as well. That way it has something to notify if something happens to it, which I never seen anything happen to it, but I always like to have an email operator on it as well. And then we will put Msdb into full recovery mode, because it always says it's in a pseudo full recovery mode. So that way we can actually have full backups on it. And then we'll actually kick off the full backup jobs for the system and the integrity checks, because that's other things that it actually flags as well, is that there has been no integrity checks for full backups for the system.
Tracy?
Yeah.
Can you maybe expand on why Msdb needs full recovery model?
Because it's see how to explain that. Well, it uses it by default when it's installed. It has viewed it as being a pseudo simple recovery mode. And dbachecks tells you to stick it in full recovery mode to get out of that mode. So it's like, I don't know exactly why it does that. What is the text that it says? That might help me remember the exact nature behind it. It's been a while since I looked at it to remember the actual wording on it. This has been a long time since I looked at that exact one.
This is interesting because this is one of the system databases that actually worth moving to full.
Yeah, and that might be why it does it, but I may be just butchering the wording on it.
I think there is somebody in the chat saying it's an override.
Yeah, it says sudo simple recovery mode right there, and I'm not sure exactly what. I'll have to look that one up again.
Okay.
But that's what it's referencing is the Msdb right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it thinks it's in simple recovery mode, but it's really not. So I to fix it, you put it in full recovery mode and take a backup of it.
I was thinking that you probably were. It's worth. I mean, probably there is better explanation, but it's you wanted to do full backups, which would also do differentials, would also do logs, because you might add a job in the middle of the day. You don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
So it's a database that, although this is like a system database, but it still can acquire changes. And if it's in simple, you're not going to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And you might actually lose it.
It doesn't explain the wording, but it explains a good reason why to do it. I always stick that one in full recovery mode and make it like a system database and a user database and back up the logs as often as I do the other log backups, because it helps with restoring the logs. It's that important. And then I like using SP Blitz backups solution where on the AGs, have you seen where you can replicate out of your MSDB into a fake MSDB across your AGs and be able to do your RPO and your RTO on your backups?
Nope, didn't see that. Yeah.
It's so cool. It's been out there for a while, but it's neat. But he has it where you can run SP Blitz against like a central MSDB is what I'll call it, but it's a fake MSDB basically on your system that you set up a job where it'll automatically funnel all the records from your regular MSDB into a central MSDB that your AGs can read. And then it can tell you across your AG whether you're actually meeting your RTO and your RPO. Because if you fell over, you could be taking backup somewhere else and not on your primary. So you wouldn't know if you was meeting your RPO and your RTO if you looked at just that one server. So it's kind of neat. I'm in the process of setting it up again. So that's why it popped in my brain. So. Sorry to be off topic. But it's a neat. I like using the SP Blitz to get the RPO and RTOs and go, hey, hey, look, we're just far away from losing data. Give me stuff.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but for our members that are watching Tracy changing jobs, this is the famous Ola Highlander maintenance solution, which includes CheckDB, different backups, and also what's the backups? Oh, and of course index, reorg, rebuild, and stats.
Oh yeah. And he also takes care of purging out your job history for you, your MSDB, and your backup history, and then he cleans up after himself.
There is one problem there, is that I don't think that Ola ever thought that somebody is not going to clean it up for 2-3 years. So if you try this, he's not batching stuff. I mean, he assumes that you install it, but I had one occasion where we forgot it, and it's accumulated 2-3 years, and his cleanup is not ready to meet millions of rows.
But his cleanup runs the system stored procedures that Microsoft gives, and he just plugs in a date. He
Right.
doesn't
If you
batch
don't
it.
if you don't clean it up for 2-3 years, Microsoft Store Procedure is not. I mean, it's not smart enough to do it by batching.
He just runs the system procedures and provides it. Hey, keep 90 days, 30 days. He run it just like what Microsoft provided him to run it with.
Sure.
I've done that too. I went in. Oh man, so many Msdbs with blown up transaction logs. Yeah, joys of changing a job. But I went into, let's see, oh, that was my last job. I they had backups going back to 2016, 5 years.
Not bad.
Every 15 minutes for like 50 databases on a server. Good times, good times.
Actually, one thing that he doesn't have any solution is if you drop a database, it's not smart enough to remove the whatever cleanup time. So as long as a database is online, his cleanup is cleaning the files beyond the cleanup time. But if you remove the database, the files are just going to be orphans living there forever.
Yep. Yep, it has no way it doesn't use the table to do that, so that's the only way he could do that is if he actually uses command log table to do it somehow. Or the Msdb. I don't know why this is running so slow today. It never runs this slow.
I think it competes with my Teams.
I know, it's like, which way can we run slower?
Wait a second. It's also a Microsoft solution?
We only got one more script to run through, and then we can rerun the report. So this is my miscellaneous script. This is where we get to do all kinds of off the wall stuff and ask all kinds any questions or game here. So, but at this point, I normally rerun the report, but it's running really slow, so we're not going to rerun it. But at this point, we would have fixed like half of these things by running those 2 scripts, because we would have fixed all the Halogram scripts at the minimum. We fixed this, which is 43 items, and we fixed probably all of these, the SQL agent items. So that's 80 items. So that's half these items here. So. And some of these items we won't be messing with, like, you know, I'm not worrying about query store and different things like that. So, and some things I can't fix. So we will. Now we're going to vacillate into doing some of the weird things. Like this one's telling me command shell should be like enabled or something, because like it's disabled right now, and I don't know why it shouldn't be flagged. So that needs to be turned off. So. Different things like that. So now we'll vacillate into just the ones that are in the other categories. That leaves us these 60 to look at. And hopefully the script is finished. No. Alright, we'll just talk about this script while that one finishes. Because it's running slow. I don't know what, it was running updates earlier today and running really slow. I thought the update was the reason why it was running slow, not because it was actually slow. But okay, so, you know, optimize for ad hoc workflows, you know, pretty much the default setting these days. I don't know anybody except for one person in the whole wide world who doesn't like this setting, so I turned it on to remote admin connections. You know, we need, just in case the system gets really, you know, volatile and you need to get in. I've hardly ever had to use it, but you just never know. Backup compression, pretty much everybody uses it. There's hardly a case not to use it. If there is, then you're welcome to take it out and disable the check for it. Turning remote access off on the machine because security auditors don't like remote access, and we don't really need people using the open row set stuff on our servers. That sounds like a terrible idea. Then we've got some basic stuff like installing all the I already did all the helping scripts. SP who is active, now maintained by Eric Darling, I believe, is taking care of this now. It doesn't ask you for Brent scripts, but you can actually install Brent Ozar's SP Blitz scripts. His Blitz scripts will turn up all kinds of cool stuff on a new system when you're taking a new job. And his cache script, his index script, his SP restore script's great to work with all the Halgran scripts. He's got a nice suite of stuff, all maintained on GitHub, things you can look at. They've also got the ability to install SQL Watch, which is a free monitoring tool. You can actually run Glenn Allen Berry's diagnostic scripts using dbatools. And they've actually got another thing called multi-tool that's out there that helps you do some documentation and some other things that you can install in there. It helps you estimate your size on your columns and tell you whether you're using the right data types and things like that, and then whether you might be able to reduce your data types based on the data that's in your tables and stuff. So all worthwhile things to invest in looking at on the system and stuff. So just nice, easy one-line commands. When you have a whole list of servers, you send them out, and it's on 100 servers just like that. Turning on Query Store. Little known fact. You can turn it on Msdb. Well, you may know that. Hence, you can't do it via the GUI though. That's why it's a little known fact. They kind of hide it. They don't have it displayed in the GUI. At least not yet. Maybe they turn it on in 2022 or something for somebody to see eventually. But right now you can't see it via the GUI. So turn it on for Msdb. Let it do some work in there. It needs some help. It needs some indexes. But you can also test for the option and see if it's set to the way you need it to be, whether it's set to the right size and things like that, to the default recommendations and things like that. And it can test for other databases as well. Mine's going to flag as 2 on the system now because I set up that user database to store this data. We also can rename and disable the SA account because the security people love for us to do this, and that makes everybody happy. And then we can set a new valid job owner as our new user. That way it can check against that instead of checking for SA. And then we can actually go in here and change all our jobs to be owned by our new user. Very simple. That way, when we rerun our check, it's now checking to see that our new user is Hooray, because we changed our config here, up here to Hooray, and now we've changed all our users to Hooray. So next time we run it, it's going to be happy and saying Hooray. I create this little SQL script right here to change my auto growth settings. So anything that's 10% or 1 meg gets changed because that's crappy settings. I hate going in and seeing stuff. I'll just grow a meg at a time. I'm only 600 gigs and I'll grow a meg at a time. Makes me laugh every time. But then you see the 10% and it's like, oh my goodness. But yeah, so I've got a little SQL file over here that I've got that queries the data, figures it out. That ain't as pretty. This one's as pretty. You can change it over here to set it to grow by a gig. That's what I did. If it's at 10% or a kilobyte, or you can change it to something else and slap it through. I always tell everything to grow by a gig. I mean, I especially log files with VLFs and stuff. There's no point in growing it too much less than that. When it gets bigger, there's point in growing it bigger than that, more so than anything else. Then you get into trace flags. Trace flags need to be set on system. I mean, how many times do you go in places consulting wise or new job wise, and you go to look at your error logs, and all you can see is the fact that they took backups forever and ever, and you can't find anything else. So turn on your trace flag to suppress your backups so that you can see some other things. Turn on your trace flags. 1117 and 118. So I'm using 2014 now, and I need 118. Setting these things so that they can be on or off depending on what you need. These are the default in 2019. So this is how you set it so it will not check for these. Because this tells it, hey, this is not expected. This tells it has to be there to skip it. It's a weird configuration for these two flags. I don't know why it got configured this way. Maybe it'll get cleaned up somehow or the other. But this is how to skip it for 2019 and forward, because 2019 and forward, these are included. But if you need them for a lesser version, then you would leave this one out to keep it. And you would set this to false to make sure you get 118 checked. And then anything that you want to have there, like 41999, so you get all the cardinality estimator changes and all the stuff that gets applied with the CUs there, or any other trace flag you want up here, you can just comma delimit them all out there. Then you can just enable a trace flag using that command, and you can do multiples. You can do keep going and going, and it will do them all at one time. And it will tell you if you're enabling one that doesn't take effect until it reboots the service, or if it's one that takes effect immediately, it just doesn't tell you that. It just takes effect. You can tell it to set your max stop to whatever the recommended industry standards are. There is a command called test max stop if you want to see what it is before you set it. And then this is normally where I go through and check it again, see how much more stuff I cleaned up. And then I go through, and it's actually finished running, so we can run all that while I talk about fancier stuff. So while that runs, look how fast that was going. Now it's running fancier. So some other things that you can do with dbatools is, one, like I've mentioned before, like, because I take new jobs a lot lately, it seems like, or you know, for the past few years, 6 years. Power plans. Power plans are still a big thing that aren't being set on systems, but you can set your power plan very easily for the computer, and they've actually got one for testing the power plans, where you can see if the power plan has actually been set correctly, and filter it out and find the ones that have been set and set them correctly. Do know if you're on a VM, you've got to check it inside of VMware. You've got to check it in the BIOS, and you know, there's like 3 different places there. It's all got to be set, but you know, that's a 30% performance boost you're losing on a system that's busy, potentially. So setting your cost threshold for parallelism, you know, setting it at 5 is like bleh, or like 1995 setting. So, you know, I'd recommend starting with like at least 35 and going on up to 50, and getting some parallelism taken care of out of there, so you can get better use out of your CPU. See, look how fast that ran. Why did the other stuff run so slow? Let's go over here. Sorry.
Do you think that Microsoft would include that 50 in 2022?
I have no idea. It doesn't seem like they ever want to change it. Seems like they're stuck on that default.
I mean, they changed max stop, they changed other things, but this one for some reason is untouchable.
It's so bizarre. Yeah, just like they even got max stop where you can set it by database now, you know, and you still can't do the threshold parallelism thing is just still 5. It's just like yikes. I don't know. They haven't seen it in the public preview yet, so I don't see them changing it if they hadn't done it in the public preview yet. I don't think I know what to change it to. I think it should at least go to 25 probably. Or the 5 should be the new 25. Oh no, that messed people up too bad. No, they shouldn't do that. But because then everybody that sets it to 25 would be like, you know, really big. So as I mentioned before, you can invoke Good and Allen Berry scripts to export them out into Excel, you know, blast out 100 machines, save some data. I'm going to be doing this next. I just started a job the day after Memorial Day, so we're patching production next Wednesday. So like next Wednesday morning, I'm going to dump all this data out. That way I can get all the DMVs right before the systems reboot. Dump it right out into Excel, have all the nice data nice and done. Another one I really like in dbatools, this again outside dbachecks, is just doing backup table compression. It'll actually go in here and table compress anything that will save you 25% and tell you what it did in a little CSV file. I have gotten so much space back on servers by doing that. It's not even funny. Just let it run over the weekend while no one's using it. One of my other favorite things to do is patch a server or multiple servers at the same time, especially if you're doing all the you got 5 2019 machines. They're all able to be patched at the same time. If you get an array right here, you can send them in all at the same time and patch 5 servers at the same time, 10 servers at the same time. I can't remember how many it does in parallel at the same time, but
I think 4, if I remember correctly. And you can also have a setting where it's unattended, so it's going to restart by itself. Yep. That's perfect, actually.
So these are all, you know, nice settings to set. I have this one in here. Someone asked me about Kerberos one day. I don't know what the question was. That was like a year ago. So that's in there if anybody had a question about Kerberos that they wanted. dbatools did just finish their book. There is a 50% discount code available on their website. If you can't find it, ping me. I will find it for you. I mean, it's already 40% off on the Manning website anyways. But hey, if you want the extra 10%, I'll hook you up. It's like 50% off forever. So, I mean, why not? And I believe there's a chapter in there about dbachecks. I'm not sure if there was or not. But at any rate, any book on dbatools is probably a good book to pick up and get using. So right now we're running the result sets. We're checking everything again and seeing how things go. Well, it's still running. I did a lot of stuff with security audit stuff in the past 3 years. So I wrote all the CIS security compliance checks into dbachecks like 2 years ago. And I've taken, and this is my script that I have blogged about on my website to take and put this into dbachecks and do a complete CIS audit check of your server. We're not going to run it, but I figured I had the machine available. I kept it open just in case we had a little extra time just to run through it and show you what you would do to do a security audit if you were interested in your CIS stuff. So this does take you through like exporting your config. So before you run it, you could export what your config was before you started. That way you don't lose what you had before you didn't need security audit, because you could have like systems that don't need CIS, so you don't need it all locked down and secure and all this weird configuration stuff going on. Because like one thing is not having remote admin connections enabled DAC. We just told them that they had to get over that, but you know there are certain things on here that you may or may not want to adhere to on other environments. So you may want to config for no CIS and for CIS, so you can import export configs and run those configs based on those configs that you got open. So that's what these are for, is to save what you got, and this can reset it just in case you want to set up something different. So, and then what I do in here is I've got my instance set that I'm going to check, and then these are all the different security checks that were written for CIS. There's a slew of them. I wrote a bunch of them. And they have descriptions in them. If you bring up the get dbc config, they'll have full descriptions of them that you can go and look at. And they're just the different items that are involved in the CIS. Like, there can't be no built-in administrators. You can't contain database can't have auto close on it. You can't have database mail enabled. Isn't that lovely? we told them that they were crazy on that one. I love the fact you can't have, that's just beyond me. I still can't get over that one. I like that you can't have database mail or SQL mail enabled, but like they're like, this doesn't exist on that version of SQL that they're testing. But it's two different things to them. But these are all the different checks that are involved in them, and the reason I have it as a separate script is that way, because you usually put in exceptions with security auditors that say, hey, these are the things I'm going to adhere to and things are not. So if there's things on here that you're going to say, hey, I'm not going to do that one, you can go in there and flip the flag and say, this is my config. And this is the way I'm going to do it. I have a complete blog post on this and how to set up the config for this. And then you can actually run your own CIS audits, and you don't have to rely on your security auditor to get it wrong that are internal to your company, because they will run the wrong thing and run it against the wrong server and send everybody in a panic. May or may not be a true story. Oh, look, we only have 30 failed items now instead of like the 168. See, look, our nice little summary down here. Pretty good. So now if we go back into our Power BI report, refresh, we'll have to change our date range over here somewhere. Oh, come on, Power BI, you can do it. Oh, wait a minute. Did I run the part to put in the database yet? No, I didn't. Hang on, wait a minute. We gotta put it in the database first. I gotta do this first. Oh, no. What? Wait a minute. What? I didn't run all that to you to lose my data, did you? Did you lose my data because I did something else in between? Oh, no. What'd you do with my data? Just to exist, you liar. How's my schema not exist? That's bizarre. Yes. Right. There. Oh, come on, slow computers. Oh, maybe it didn't have the database parameter in there. Could be it. I've been trying to go to master or something weird. Oh, come on. I have no idea why it's so slow tonight. It took like 2 seconds the time I ran it yesterday all the way through. I was like,
well, you didn't have 10 people watching you. So.
I know, but still, come on. It's inserting one record. Right there, one record, all it's inserting. One record. That one's inserting one record. That one's inserting what third? I don't know, a bunch more, but that one's one. Come on. Get with it. Maybe, maybe not. dbachecks, so changes. Well, it's a good thing I have PowerShell to back me up. That only had 30 things that are broken. Sure, I can't get PowerBI to back me up. It's prettier with PowerBI though. Now he does have a report out there that's for people that are colorblind, so you don't have the green and the red on his GitHub as well. Hopefully, I didn't have to worry about that when I was presenting tonight. I don't like it because it's too dark.
I'm wondering what you do for colorblind people. You present red as dark and green as light. So it's basically sticks out as red.
His is completely dark. It's like the whole thing's dark, and it's just like, oh, I'll have to look at it again. I haven't looked at it outside of my 13-inch screen. I'm on my monitors now, so it might look different on it. So.
So Mary is saying that green and red shouldn't be used for charting colors, but I think it's like I think it's a mental connection between a human and a traffic light. So green is obviously something that is okay, and red is something that's not. So you should stop and do something. I think that's the whole idea of green and red.
I'm gonna find the date field over here, but I'm not seeing it. Aha. No, not date field. Guess it doesn't have a date over here in this one. But it doubled my columns. Darn it. I did not run this a second time on the same day to see that it did not have a date field over here. I was trying to filter this down by date instead of just by 0. But I'm not able to see that it's only filled twice. I can do that over on some of these other ones. They had dates. See, this one has a date. Apply that. Last. And then nothing shows up. You're so weird, computer. Just all this skip. No. Why isn't anything showing up? That's really bizarre. Relative time. I don't know why that didn't work either. Okay. That's bizarre. I'll have to figure that one out. I'm beyond my capabilities of Power BI at this point. I warned Steve I was trying out the Power BI reporting you guys tonight. That's my first time demoing it in succession like that. I've tried it over a few days, but I've never actually ran it a couple of times on the same day, so that's my fault. Well, we did actually get it down to only 30 failed items, though. As you can see here, we've got 466 passed, 30 failed, and 8 skipped instead of that big, massive number of failed items that we had before. So we did actually do what we said we did. I do have proof. So back to PowerPoint, which probably needs to I need to add more links to it before I upload it for you guys. But you guys can have not. We don't want to start all the way there. Oh my goodness, lots of clicking. Ah, there we go. Resources. Basically, the main resources are, the dbatools website, dbachecks. I'm going to add some blogs, posts that I've written since I've done this to there, and Rob's Get Rehope for the new Power BI thing that I just demonstrated. I've got to put in a request for his because he needs a new field into his tables. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get it to work. And then I'm open for any questions that you guys might have. There's my contact information, my website to get to. I will upload my slides, let's say by Saturday. Write myself a to-do note right now.
Thank you all. Have a great day and see and hear you next meeting. And again, Tracy, thanks a lot for your great presentation.
No problem. See y'all again sometime soon.
Thank you. Good night and hear you next meeting.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.